Hi, I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. A real pleasure to be able to speak to you today. Maybe you could just kick off with a brief introduction to this incredible series for people who aren't already familiar with it. Tell us a bit about the concept.
So the show is about a family of power brokers in the town called Kingstown, who do everything that they possibly can to maintain order and justice and peace generally in a town that is saturated with prisons and everything that comes with that. So yeah, I play a character called Bunny, Devin Bunny Washington, and he is the head of one of the prominent gangs within the town Kingstown. And yeah, that's me.
Where can we find you at the beginning of season 2? Just more general series, but in particular, what's happening with your character?
So season 2 starts, I think it's maybe a couple of weeks after the riots of season 1. So my character basically begins from that point. Everything from the prison riots has now spilled out onto the streets, and my character has taken steps to protect himself in essence, and also to try and mitigate any sort of threats that come his way. Yeah.
And this perhaps wasn't an obvious series for you to be in, with your British background. I mean, I know it's a fictional town that it's set in, but this is a very US-based story. And it's quite dark, it is quite violent. And even though it's a fictional place, there's some very real issues that are brought to the fore, kind of the business of incarceration, issues with gangs, and injustice and inequality. What was the appeal for you of jumping on board, and kind of how did it come about in some ways?
Well, my agent's really good, so shout out to my agent Alice. But yeah, she I think that they put out a casting call, and generally these kinds of productions, because they're so large and on the other side of the fence, meaning America, I usually feel like it's quite a long shot. It's a bit of a long shot to audition from here and sort of do all of that. But what really appealed to me was the character in itself was not written in a very stereotypical manner. There are aspects of him that I relate to myself. I'm not talking about the violent side, but more his approach to his reality. He uses humor a lot to kind of alleviate the stress, and with that there is also this other side to him, which isn't inherently obvious to people, so it can be quite shocking. So I really enjoy that kind of acrobatics, I guess is the best I can describe it. So that was what drew me to it, and that was basically how I got it. Before I knew it, I was having a phone call with Taylor Sheridan, and yeah, a couple of weeks after that, they told me I booked the job, and I really couldn't believe my ears. And I had a little tango with my wife in our living room after we heard. So yeah, and now I'm here to talk about season 2,
And what did the preparation look like? I guess kind of getting into this character, but also getting into this world. I mean, were you very familiar? If you spent a lot of time in the US, did you understand kind of, what that environment might be like, and even trying to sort of like nail the accent and things like that? What kind of was the preparation process like for you?
So I have the benefit of extensive exposure, I guess, to America. That's been things like TV, even right down to music, things like that. So American culture, particularly African American culture, is very prevalent in our household. So I'm from Nigeria, so we kind of grew up watching the staples, the sitcoms, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Moesha, Sister, all of that kind of stuff, and even Friends. So I was exposed to a lot of that. But I also come from quite a diverse background. I have Jamaican family. I also have Nigerian family and British. We have family who live here. So being able to use all of those experiences to find similarities between my own life and also what things might have been like, or what things might be like in America was how I got into it. That was my preparation. And also, you know, the themes within this story, within the Mayor of Kingstown, are, I feel anyway, are quite universal. We see a lot of these situations globally. It's just I guess we're seeing it from an American perspective. But if you want to talk about corruption, we have it right here in England, we have it in Nigeria, we have it across the globe, and it's something that I can understand simply because of my kind of spread out background, and that's what I used. And then the accent was that was a lot of repetition, a lot of practice. There were times where I would actually just go out on my high street and just try and talk in an American accent. And afterwards, I would ask them if they thought I was American, and if I got a positive response, and I'd be like, all right, cool, I'm hitting the mark. And so, you know, I just kept practicing right up until shoot day. So yeah, that was it. It was a lot of work, but I think it was worthwhile.
And of course, working opposite Jeremy Renner, and, you know, especially your characters in this season, kind of like working more closely. I mean, he is just one of these really versatile actors, but, you know, very much at home in a role like this. You know, think of the things he's done before, you know, from, you know, The Hurt Locker, you know, right through to Hawkeye, very much in kind of like that action thriller sphere. But he's just so amazing in this. What was it like working with him? And, you know, how did you kind of, you know, work out that relationship between your characters, you know, so that it really came alive on set?
He's okay. First of all, yeah, he's amazing. So it's like sometimes when I watch him, it's almost like he's so good that it looks like he's not really trying. So and that can be very intimidating for me, because I'm coming into this world, and it's, you know, so I learned a lot just from observing him. Observing some of the scenes. Sometimes I would go and watch him on set, even when I wasn't filming, and I just wanted to see just how he maneuvers, how he gets into it, how he sort of exercises his creative expression in this world, and it's absolutely fascinating. So working alongside him, it's because it's Jeremy Renner. I'm on my toes. I need to come prepared, and there are times where, you know, in order to build this relationship, you have to, in order to make it real, in order to make it feel real, which it was in a sense, we would sort of riff with each other. You know, he would throw me some lines here, something that wasn't in the script, and I would fire it right back at him, and it builds like that, and eventually you create this whole scene, and you create this dynamic, which is unique and I guess genuine. Because we had a lot of fun on set, especially with the scenes and stuff. So yeah, man. Yeah.
And obviously, you know, devastating to hear about his incident, but it seems like he's even kept his humor even through that. And I don't know, there were jokes about, well, you should have seen the snowcat kind of thing. So it seems like he's kind of unstoppable in you know, both on and off screen.
Yeah. I mean, he has to, just to play this character, he has to it's a lot of work. So in order to carry that, you kind of have to be a certain kind of person. You know, he's got the shoulders for it. You know what I mean? So this incident that he has is not something that I can't see him bouncing back from even stronger, because yeah, he knows how to maneuver in these kinds of situations. So yeah.
And you know, as we said, you know, it is quite violent. Does go to some very dark places. Were there any parts of the shoot, or, you know, any elements of creating the show that you found particularly challenging or difficult to get around?
I think coming to grips with American history was one. It was an education in itself. I almost had to do a bit of a crash course in just so that I could understand the psyche of my character. My character is a Black man. He's an African American man in America, and he's in a town that is saturated by I guess an experience that is largely forced upon the African American community. You know, prison is a thing out there, and it's almost a culture in itself. So having to do the research on that I had to do quite a lot of extensive research. I watched 13th, directed by Ava DuVernay, which is the Netflix documentary and stuff. And just from that spurred on a bunch of other research avenues that I used to I guess create and understand the experience of living within this world, and try to relate to it in order to bring it to the screen. So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question. I was just waffling there. Sorry.
No, it's really interesting. And in terms of the takeaways, in terms of the themes, I mean, I guess, like you say, thinking of that documentary 13th, understanding how kind of prevalent the incarceration culture is in the US. And, and I think it comes out when there's the inmates kind of having that group session and talking about choices. And it's kind of bringing to the fore that it's like, well, how many people actually do have a choice? How much do people have agency over their fate when this system is so ingrained, and the idea of kind of justice and right and wrong is kind of blurred, really, and there's so much corruption. And in order for the police to have control, they almost have to be negotiating with criminals. So it's kind of a really interesting, complex view that we get from the series.
Yeah, and there's also the human element of it as well. Right? We're talking about this, like you've mentioned. This is a very it's quite dark and violent. So there's an aspect of people going through life not having dealt with the everyday traumas that they face, and that takes its toll, on some people. So it's one thing to say, oh, some people don't even know if they have choice, but I don't even know if people are even in the right frame of mind to observe whether that's even a question that can be answered. Some people are facing real imminent threats on their person. So it's like, it sort of puts things off kilter a little bit, just from a human perspective. So that's what I find really important. Also, having to deal with the psychological aspects of this world, this violence that you're dealing with, psychological, emotional, and physical violence, that you're constantly under threat with. So it's quite intense, yeah. And
in terms of your own career, I mean, you've done such an amazing variety of things already. I think Lost in London with Woody Harrelson, which must have been an absolute whirlwind. Working on stage at the National Theatre. What have been some of the highlights for you so far, and what have you got coming up next?
Highlights. I mean, mate, my last day on set, I spoke to Janet Jackson. That topped my year, mate. That was it. I was like, I don't care what happens next, mate. I've made it, So that was pretty cool. But I think what I'm really, really grateful for is the opportunity to be able to tell human stories, to be able to exercise my self-expression in that way. And I've been really blessed on top of that to work with some fantastic people. So, the crew on season 1 and season 2 were just really welcoming and really accepting. And I tried my utmost to be very respectful of the efforts they put into their craft and into the work. That's really what I thoroughly enjoy. And at the moment, I'm really trying to delve deeper into it, into the whole production world. I'd like to produce my own things, so that's currently what I'm working on as well. And among other things as well. Yeah, so auditioning for all that stuff and looking at new opportunities.
Very quickly, how do you see kind of the landscape right now, whether it's TV, whether it's film, in terms of representation, how much it's opened up? I mean, I've just been reading a lot about the Oscars, and it sometimes feels like we take one step forward, 2 steps back, because, movies like Woman King seem to be snubbed, and, lead actress from Till wasn't nominated. So, but that's only one aspect of things. How do you see the broad landscape?
I think it's really promising, regardless of what's happening. It doesn't take away from the successes of these fantastic stories, these beautiful, often I don't want to say often tragic, but these beautiful human stories. Or none of that takes away from that. So I think what's really important is that these stories are told to the best capacity that they can possibly be, and not be shortchanged in any way. They should be given the same opportunities as everything else in this industry and on this planet, because there's space for everybody. And also, you know, people also have to tell their stories. That's where, you know, we can draw from our experiences and find similarities within each other, you know. So that's my hope, and what I'm seeing is that more of these stories are told, more variety for everybody to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Very beautifully put. Well, I'm out of time, but it's been such a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks so much.
Can't wait for everyone else to, I'm sure, binge watch, you know, in one go, and the second season of Mayor of Kingstown. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tobi. Bye. Cheers.